You've decided you're ready to become a parent, and suddenly you're overwhelmed with people who feel they have the right to inform you on the correct way to conceive, give birth, what fears you should have, and the proper way to parent. How do you filter through the opinions? How do you know what's trustworthy information and what's a myth or just plain outdated? Welcome to the Birth Ease podcast. Join your host Michelle Smith and her guests as they cut through the noise and fear by sharing valuable tips, tools, and proven methods that help you connect with your own inner wisdom as you navigate the sacred journey that is pregnancy, birth, and parenthood in a more relaxed and confident manner. This podcast does not constitute, nor is it intended, as medical advice.
Hello, Birth Ease families. Welcome to this heartfelt place. I'm your host, Michelle Smith. In today's episode, I am incredibly honored to have with me Tagudin. Kathy and I are going to be discussing the ways that we as parents really need to stop and remember the importance of self-care, and also the importance of listening to our bodies, listening to ourselves as we navigate life, as we care for our children, and do our best to make a difference in the world and for our children. That goal that most all parents have. Tagudin is a mind-body connection specialist who helps women listen to their bodies and live authentic lives. Kathy believes disconnection from self is the root of all pain and suffering, and that mindful awareness holds the key to our health, happiness, and future. Kathy's birth as a master coach and mindfulness teacher stems from her life-altering 9-year journey surviving disabling chronic illness. Struggling to walk, talk, eat, or maintain essential bodily functions, doctors labeled her incurable. But by discovering her body's inner wisdom, she reclaimed her life, one milestone at a time. Her life mission is to remind everyone that what you need is already within. Welcome, Kathy, to the Birth Ease podcast. I am so incredibly honored to have you here with me today.
Aw, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. As I read your bio, I just love it. I love it because a big tenet that's been running through the podcast and through the interviews is the importance of listening to our own inner wisdom and learning to trust that once again. And so I'd really love to delve deeper into that. But before we do, can you share a little bit about the journey that brought you to your work, supporting and returning people to self?
It's always a little confronting when somebody says, "Can you share a little bit more about your journey?" I'm like, how do you sum up
Right.
9 years, and really 49 years, I'll be 50 this year, into 2 minutes?
Right. Well, you get longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah. But how do you? And here's what I want to say about me and what I do.
Okay.
So we'll talk about some aha moments, because there were some. Sometimes the easiest way to talk about what I do is to talk to others from their experience, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, like, as I'm sitting with you, have you ever had the experience of something happened, whatever it was, and you said to yourself out loud or inside, "I knew it.
Yes.
I knew it." And maybe the I knew it was about a job, or maybe the I knew it was I shouldn't have turned left. I knew I shouldn't have turned left, but I knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the part of you that knew?
I would call that my inner wisdom, my connection to, which to me is that connection to all that is, to God.
Yeah.
That inner knowingness.
Yeah. And how did you know? Like, can you think of a specific example of
I can, actually.
something coming to mind?
Yes.
What's the moment?
It is. It's kind of a long backstory, but I didn't think I was going to be able to go to my niece's wedding There were a lot of things going on and a lot of factors involved. And it turned out that my mom and my stepfather, we thought they were going to be able to go, and she wasn't able to go. And so my father, who, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know, we just lost his beloved wife, my stepmom. And he just wasn't feeling ready to travel and go to a wedding and all of that. There were, like I said, a lot of mitigating things going on. So my brother called, just heartbroken because none of his family was going to be there. So my father called me. He's like, do you want to take an all expense paid trip to Texas? And I'm like, yes, actually, I have really wanted to go to the wedding. Again, it just felt like too much. And so we're making all the plans to go. And I have this lizard named Fergie that we've had probably 10 years. And that little lizard was like my dog. And she was very ill and frail because she was old. I shouldn't say ill. She was just frail. And we got a long time with that little lizard. This was on Sunday, and I spent a lot of time holding her, and we were feeding her with a dropper. And I knew her time was near. And as my dad and I were making these plans, I just thought, oh, she's going to go. She's going to go while I'm gone. And how do I make this decision? Because that was part of why I didn't want to go, because my little one just lost 2 grandmas.
Oh, wow.
And her, yeah, thank you. And her daddy's been living in the Caribbean. And I thought, I'm going to leave my girls alone to navigate this loss of their lizard. And my little one is very stoic, but anytime, because she cried about her grandmas, but not like my other girls would have done. And she's just very stoic. And when we would talk about, because she overheard me giving the lizard permission to pass away. And she just was bawling, I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it. And so I sat with that. I thought, I know when I leave, Fergie's going to transition. I know she is. And where do I make this decision, and how do I do that? And so I knew I needed to go, and I wanted to go. But the plane landed, and my little girl is calling me. Well, she texts me first, crying, hysterical. Fergie died, Mommy, Fergie died. And so it was just like, oh, I knew it. I knew Fergie was going to do that. And so kind of calmed her down. And then we went to a restaurant. We had to drive. We had to get the rental car and calmed my girls down. And then it was just a day, because then my girls calmed down. And then my dad's niece called, and my stepmom's sister passed away the same day. And it was just this feeling of, I knew the significance of what was going to be going on.
Wow.
So I guess in a way it kind of prepared me, and my girls did really well, and I was proud of them. But in my moment, in my grief, and in doing lots of work with grief, I'm like, we stored her in the refrigerator so that I could come home and I could honor Fergie. And we could bury her together. The girls didn't want to do it alone. So, and they laughed because I put goldfish in the refrigerator before so we could bury them. But we wanted to be able to honor that process. So that was a very long answer to your question.
No, it was perfect. It was perfect. First of all, I'm really sorry that you're dealing with loss. I know you and I talked earlier. I just lost my cat.
Yes,
and
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and so loss is so hard.
Yeah.
Even when we know it.
Yes.
Even when we know it.
It is.
And and the interesting thing about knowing is, in hindsight, most of us have this awareness of this, I knew it, and it usually follows some kind of trauma. I knew I shouldn't have parked there.
Right.
I knew. And yet, like, a part of our being always knows. And what is it like when you're living from a part of me already knows how to do whatever's in front of me? And you can remove the obstacles in the way from knowing to action, from knowing to being, of knowing to just being still and satisfied, taking it from a punishment angle, which is where we are now. I knew it mostly lives in the world of punishment in these days and age.
Yeah,
shouldn't have done X, Y, Z. Your story is beautiful in the sense of you knew it and you made a choice inside of it, and it was a hard choice.
Right.
But you had some awareness of what was going on, right? Mm-hmm. So as far as my journey, so for 9 years, actually about 6, my body was failing. Doctors had labeled me in the beginning. It was everything from you're depressed to, first it was nothing's wrong with you. Then it was you're depressed. And by the time they caught up that something really was going on, it was, no, we can't help you and we don't think you're going to be here much longer.
Wow.
So it was this dramatic chain of events in my life that I never expected. My background before I got sick was actually in coaching. I was a performance coach. So everything I did was in the world of doing. If you said to me, you want to do a project, I worked specifically with entrepreneurs, and I really was like, your feelings don't matter. It's what you say you want to make happen, you make happen. And that's the world I lived in. And then I got sick. And my body didn't care about my positivity or my affirmations. And what I started to see is my body was trying to speak. It was trying to talk to me. I'm staring at this sign. It says Dunstan baby language. Your baby is trying to talk to you. Now you can understand. Well, your body's talking to you. And because it doesn't have a mouth, except the one run by your brain, it has to speak in certain ways. And that's through symptoms, through feelings, through this intuitive, And so my journey was 6 years leaning into that.
Wow. And I have to say, she's sitting in front of me very vibrant.
I'm vibrant. I am not dead, people.
Yeah, she is so vibrant.
And I am so not dying.
No.
And you know what's funny? My turning point, so there are a lot of turning points in a 9-year history, but I had this sense all along that my body's trying to talk and I just don't understand what it's trying to say. And I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
And everything was through this filter of I've got to fix this, I've got to fix this, I've got to fix this. And my turning point really came, I was having difficulty peeing. No good way to talk about it, but I literally couldn't pee. And I had gone to many doctors over the course of 2 years. And when I say couldn't pee, I'd wake up in the morning and just didn't have to go. And 5 p.m., I still didn't have to go.
Wow. So
not only could I not, I didn't have the urge to. Something was clearly wrong. And I was going to these doctors and they were saying things like, well, maybe you didn't drink enough water, or these ridiculous things. And I remember saying at the time, I don't know what I was, 44, 45. I was like, I've been peeing for good 44, 45 years. I'm pretty sure I've got this down. Like, you go to sleep, you wake up and you go. Like, I'm pretty sure nothing has totally changed from this formula. And, it was devastating because I was really dreadfully worried. I already had major food intolerances. I was down to eating just boiled potatoes. That's all I ate for about 1.5 years. All I could eat were yellow potatoes.
Wow.
Drink water. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. I can't walk. I was stumbling and fainting. I couldn't talk. I was stuttering. I can't eat. And now I'm down to pee. And so I was really at the end of a line of, my body's giving up. I'd pulled everyone into my life and I said, I think I'm dying and this is what I want. I was talking to my husband about getting remarried. I'm like, this is what we need to do. And I went to a doctor finally and they met with me. They put their hand on my shoulder and they said, listen, you have been through so much. We're just not even going to test you anymore. And I know by looking at you, they told me, and you'll probably get this from a birthing perspective. They said, I know by looking at you, you have soggy, boggy bladder. And the bladder's a muscle. They're doing this. I'm touching her arm. The bladder's a muscle. And you just can't turn that around when that happens. So I'm going to give you these. And they proceeded to pull out from behind their back what looked like a bouquet. Only instead of flowers, it was catheters. I'm going to give you these, and it's going to be great. You're just going to insert them. You're going to go to the bathroom whenever you need to. It's going to be wonderful. And I'm sitting there going, like trying to process it. I'm going, I need to do what? And I can do anything. I've been through some things, right? Mm-hmm. But my brain was just struggling to make sense of what they were saying. And I said, okay. And I breathed and I said, well, for how long? And she said, oh no, it's forever. It's just how it's going to be. And I just lost it. I started crying and I'd never done that. I'd never, I'm pretty sure I cussed a few choice words, but I was like, what do you mean it's forever? Like I'm 45, however I was years old. And she was like, yeah, you're going to have to accept it. And she put me in the nurse. They taught me how to do it. They labeled me with neurogenic bladder with no testing. And I came home. My husband didn't know what was going on. I sat in the driveway and I thought, this is it. I'm going to kill myself. Oh. This is it. And I know some might think like, well, that's the worst that you're going to kill yourself with. But I want to put in context on top of everything else. It was just the final straw. And I'm like, I can't live like this. Isn't even living. Like I would put my cat down, which I just did.
Yeah.
Out of mercy.
Right.
And so that's where I was. And I sat in my car and I phoned a friend. And I told her what happened. And she said 3 words that changed my life. She said, what if they're wrong?
Wow.
What if they're wrong? And fortunately for me, I had one rule. I believe in death with dignity. I believe in people getting a say about how their life goes and their qualities of their lives. But I had one rule for my own life, which is you're welcome to leave this world at any time, but if you do it, you can't do it disempowered.
That's huge. I'm just sitting with it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I was totally disempowered. I just was disempowered. So I went inside. I smuggled my catheters in. I put them under the sink. I didn't even try to use them that day. I just slept on it. Good remedy for disempowerment, sleeping on it.
Right.
Been doing some sleeping lately. And the next morning I got up and I tried to use a catheter and no urine came out. Which means, by the way, they were wrong.
Right.
Yeah. So fast forward, at that moment, I really got, they're all just guessing. As one of my favorite doctors that's a friend says, they call it practicing for a reason. They're all just guessing. And if they were just guessing, I could start guessing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I surrendered. Huge. I sat in my little healing room, not different than this, and I prayed a prayer to a God I wasn't even sure I knew or understood. And I just said, God, if you are up there, I need you to show me in no uncertain terms when I'm on the right path and when I'm not. And if you do, I'll listen. And I turned it over. From that moment on, I became someone who listened. And I started mindfully meditating and praying probably 9 to 12 hours a day. I just sat and listened. I woke up and said, body, where do you want to go? What do I need to see? And the interesting thing is what I started seeing were patterns. I started noticing every time I pick up this one pill bottle, it falls out of my hand. Every time that same pill bottle falls out of my hand. Why is that happening? And then the real click went, I was losing mobility on the left side of my body. So for a while I'd been being worked up for strokes, and if I needed cervical surgery, I had a bunch of neck stuff. And I was eating with a friend at Casino in Winter Park. And every time I picked up the fork kept dropping from my hand. And it happened like 3 times in a row. Ka-boom, ka-boom, the next time. So loud, I felt like the whole patio watched. I might be making it up, but in my head, what happened was it was so loud, the whole patio stopped, everybody turned and looked at me and were like, what are you doing? And my friend said, my God, that's so weird. It's almost like your body doesn't want you to eat that. And then it clicked. 6 years, I thought about the trails of food that lined my carpet in my living room and how I cried over my body betraying me, that it couldn't move right and it couldn't properly do things without being clumsy. And I thought, oh my God, it's been trying to talk. And I haven't been listening. And so That's a long answer to your question, but what I'm here for is that people don't have to go through. 9 years is when I finally stopped calling myself chronically ill. 2010, late last year was the first time in December when I met a person and I didn't say I'm chronically ill.
Wow.
And I don't want people to have to go through that to learn what I've learned. So that's what I'm committed to. Your body has a language. Your language is not my language, but your language is amazing. And if we can find it, if you can find it, your whole life can change.
Yes. I'm just sitting with the power of your story. It's truly astonishing. In my episode with Susan DeCincy, we were talking about the gift that can happen and circumstances that can happen and trauma. And the gift of this is your healing through listening to your body. And Susan and I touched on that as well. What is our body wanting to tell us? And are we able to listen? And what's come out of the last few episodes as well is how we all intrinsically want to be heard. We want to be listened to. We want to be honored. Mm-hmm. But as I'm talking to you, and the thread was already there from those previous episodes and just from the work that I do with people, we don't even know how to listen to ourselves.
And there you have it.
Yes,
we don't. There you have it.
We don't.
And so we have a bunch of hungry women out looking for food. And they've got a whole buffet right here. And we're searching and searching for someone to give us our worth and our power and someone to blame for why we don't have those things. And meanwhile, you're just here waiting for you.
That's so true. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking we do so much work to take back our power. But what you're reminding me, what you're reminding all of the listeners and everyone you work with, that the power is already there.
It's never, right.
It's never been gone.
It's never been gone. Even healing, I struggle, right? Because, you know, we talk a lot about, like, you can heal. You're actually already healed. You're actually already, everything you need is already there. What's missing is your experience of it, being able to see it. You know, every day when I get up, I invite God into my eyes, in my ears, into my speech, so I can hear newly and higher than me as a person. You know, I hear through tired eyes, tired ears. So how can I listen bigger, listen differently? And we recognize that all. Here's the thing that's funny. You know, for a long time I struggled with, what is it I'm actually teaching? You know, is this woo-woo? What is this? This like hippy-dippy, I don't know. I was the most non-hippy-dippy person on the planet. You know, I was very much intuition, schmission. Like, that was me, you know. I'll sleep when I'm dead. That's type A, hardcore going person, right?
My kids, I know, I always laugh. That saying, there ain't no rest for the wicked, right? Money don't grow on trees. It's that song, right?
Right.
And we laugh about, oh, I gotta work. Right. I gotta get this done. I gotta take care of my kids. I gotta keep pushing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then there are places like where the light gets in, like where you nudge. So what's your dog's name?
Abby.
So Abby's like hanging out at our feet, which is so awesome. This beautiful Sheltie, right? There are moments where the light gets in. Like, if you've ever noticed an animal, you ever notice, like, we just had those storms a few days ago. Does Abby freak out before storms?
She does.
Yeah.
If they're really bad, or she'll get anxious during the storm.
Yeah. Or does Abby know when you're depressed or when you're having a bad day?
I feel like Abby and my Fergie, my lizard.
The lizard, yeah.
She knew.
Yeah.
And Abby, I feel like she's been going through the transition because she was living with Grandma who passed. Mm-hmm. And so she's been, I think, going through her own grief and then feeling all of our grief. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching her in that. And are you doing okay, girl? How are you doing?
Yeah,
This is a
yeah.
lot. We're all going through a lot. Yeah.
You know, so I think for women it's interesting. So we give a lot of space to animals. So I think that's like for people that are hardcore type A who are like, you know, I don't know, all this listening to myself stuff. I try to deal with if intellectually it doesn't like jive with you or your belief system or what you were raised with. I was raised Southern Baptist, hardcore Christian beliefs. And I'm still a Christian, but I have different, softer Christian beliefs now. But like a place where it could get in is I could see it. My dog, Betsy, she always knew before a storm came. And that wasn't weird. I never questioned it. I was never like, Betsy, how could you possibly know? Well, maybe barometric pressure. Well, whatever. Like they knew. Or how do seizure dogs know to alert? They still don't really know how they know to do that. They know how to train it. But you recognize somewhere there's something they hear you don't.
Right. Or we'll give, it's animal instinct. They have instincts that we humans don't have.
Right.
They can hear things we don't.
Right.
Dogs just know things.
Right.
Or cats or
Right.
animals. They know when there's a storm. Listen,
Right.
watch the animals. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But we give that space to them, but we don't always give that space to ourselves.
Right.
And it is just this deeper listening. One of my mentors likes to say, I think they hear it because they're close to the ground. Like close to the earth, which are we close to our centers, close to our core? So it's just interesting. Or even the sense of noticing. One of the things that I used to really, I would hear people talk about alternative healing or crystals or those sorts of things. And that never resonated with me. I'm like, I don't understand that. So you carry a rock and people feel better? Like that's how it occurred to me. And then I started to get this context of how when I'm near the ocean, how good my body feels. How that sound cools and calms something in me. How putting my feet in the sand gives me this experience. And I'm like, is that what they're talking about when they hold the rock? Are they just carrying the ocean in their pocket?
Yeah. That's a nice way to look at it.
Yeah, it really changed my context from this either all thinking or this linear what healing looks like or what I'm capable of to something bigger, even to the most, one of the images that came to mind when I started getting this, because I knew I'm trained in the world of kinesiology. And kinesiology, if you don't know, is all about the premise that when the body is out of balance or incongruent, it becomes weak. So whether you believe in kinesiology or not, that's your prerogative. But I liken it to thinking of Popeye with spinach when he's strong or Superman with kryptonite when he's weak.
Yes, yes.
And the truth is most of our lives, and definitely mine, I had a lot of kryptonite and I had no idea what it was. So finding your spinach, finding your kryptonite, learning to listen, be closer to the earth. Those are the things.
Right. And I've always said for years that I feel like our ability to listen to our inner wisdom, to trust ourselves, it gets trained out of us from the time we're little. Or even as parents, I remember attending this birth years ago. It was the family's second baby, and the baby was born. And the respirations were a little bit fast. In a birth center or home birth, we would say, yes, if the baby can nurse, let the baby nurse. It's going to help regulate the baby. If there's any mucus, it'll help clear it, and it'll help settle them. Well, back then in this particular hospital, no, we have to wait. We have to wait. And so the mom wasn't allowed to nurse yet, and that whole not allowed. And the respirations weren't super high. If they were super high, the baby wouldn't have been able to nurse. So the nurse told the mom, I'll be back in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Do not try to feed him. Wait till I get back. His respirations are high. And before the nurse left, she looked at me. Don't let her nurse was the thing. So the mom is holding the baby, and the little baby, newborns don't usually peck immediately after they're born. As they get a little older, they'll root, but this baby was doing the little bit older kind of pecking, trying to find the breast. And, like a little bird almost, but the baby was already doing that.
Right.
And so the mom's looking at the baby. It's not her first baby. And she says, he really wants to nurse. And I said, I agree. But the nurse said that you need to wait, being the good doula. And she said, well, I don't care what she said. My baby wants to eat. And I said, I agree. I'm just doing my due diligence.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I absolutely agree.
Sure.
Yeah, because we would have had a conversation if she hadn't said that.
Sure.
What's your baby telling you? Do you
Sure.
want to call her back in? That
Sure.
kind of thing. So anyway, she said, I'm going to nurse my baby. Baby latches right away.
Wow.
He's happy.
Yeah.
He's going to town. And the nurse comes in and she's absolutely livid.
Yeah, of course.
Why are you nursing this baby? I told you had to wait.
Yeah.
And the mom said, because he was telling me he was hungry.
Yeah.
And he wanted to eat and he's nursing fine. And the nurse looked at her and said, well, babies don't always know what's right for them. They don't know what's right. And in that moment, I thought, this is part of why we are so lost from our inner wisdom, from listening to our bodies.
Yeah.
If there is this premise that from the moment this baby is born, and
they don't know what's right for them.
they don't know what's
The
right
belief
for them.
there. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're it.
And he didn't know what was right for him,
Wow.
wherein he did.
Yeah.
And she listened. And that story is
Yeah.
just coming back to me so powerfully as we're talking, that our babies do know. We know there's part of us that knows.
Part of you knows.
We just need to remember how to listen and honor that.
And are in, to some degree, are you brave enough to believe it?
Yes.
Are you brave enough to step in? Which, by the way, I'm not advocating people don't listen to medical professionals. They're
Right.
well trained. They know great things. But here's what I'm wondering is, do you give your power away to what they say? Or do you balance it with what your body says to say or what you say?
Right.
And that's, I think, the difference. You can have all of these opinions, but we've got to get, at the end of the day, they're opinions. Some opinions are more informed than others.
Right. And that's what I find can happen in birth very often is there's these protocols and paradigms here in Central Florida. In most medical practices, the norm is becoming, if you are over 35 years old and pregnant, that they're going to induce you.
Yeah.
And not even looking at the evidence, whether it's your first baby or your second or your third. And recently I had a very brave mama. She had a lot of things going on, but she was 39 and she had had her daughter, her firstborn, 20 years ago. And she was expecting another baby. And of course, the push was to induce her. Now, she has a listening midwife. And they set up the induction and they sat with it. She decided to wait. And the induction, I think, was going to be set up for Thursday. And then on Saturday, this sweet baby girl makes her entrance, and this mom has this incredible, beautiful natural birth. She was wanting an epidural, but her body and her baby had a different plan. It was incredible. And all I could think was, look at what you did. Because I had a baby. I was almost 42 when my last was born.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, they like to call us geriatric pregnancies or advanced maternal age. And I'm not saying not to be induced if that's what feels right to a family. And it is different to have IVF and
Sure.
you're 41. Like there's different
That's the
things
thing, though.
in
There's
place.
different things for
And
everybody.
it needs to
Yeah.
be honored.
Needs to be honored.
And there was just this belief she had been told, oh, your last birth was 20 years ago. You're 39. You're not going to be able to do this. Your body's too old. It'll be like your first birth. None of that was true. She gave birth
Yeah.
beautifully
Yeah.
and magnificently.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look at what your body could do.
Right.
And part of her knew that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the dilemma is, as you're speaking, I'm like, oh, yes, but I feel for the people in medical care right now.
I do too.
Because if it doesn't fit into a box, it's very, very difficult. I admit, doing mind body work, we live in a one and done society. We want to check the box and be done. We want that with clients. We want that with patients. We want that as consumers. And it's killing us. And unfortunately, with the medical system, I feel for those practitioners because it takes a while to facilitate connecting with yourself. It's a much easier process to say, this is the general recommendation. But at this point in life, I think, especially with the way the world is right now, we have to look at, are the general recommended recommendations the most beneficial recommendations? Are they the most loving recommendations? Are they the most comprehensive recommendations from all the different schools of knowledge?
Right.
We read so much now about trauma therapy. I just did an amazing positive neuroplasticity training.
Oh, cool.
There are so many ways to dive into what a body needs, how it makes those choices, and how to empower it and inspire it. And it's an ongoing journey. We're learning new stuff every day about how to take better care of ourselves. And I don't think the medical community at large is caught up yet with that.
No, I've heard once research is in place, it can take about 20 years to get it in practice in the hospital.
So, your frustration that exists for people who don't have this connection, I try to approach it with some grace and ease. And I try to think, this is the lead of that. And the lead of that is sometimes a little more thorny. We got to clear a path, right? That's our job, to clear a path.
Right.
So.
Right. And I love that you brought up that point about the providers, because having friends that are midwives and just listening to physicians,
they're feeling it too.
They are, because they're caught up in a system, and they would love to be able to provide different care, but the system that they're in isn't creating the environment that's conducive for that.
Exactly. So how do we create the environment as we create it here? Out of my clients, I see clients privately. Usually we have 6-month partnerships. We work together. And when I started this, I thought, I'm just going to work with chronically ill people. These are my people. And I started to realize that actually usually isn't my person. It's probably half of my population, but the other half are actually physicians, nurses, people that are stuck in this system, that realize they're in this system, and they're working on how to have themselves be embodied themselves. I met with a psychologist a few weeks ago, and I met her in passing at a social gathering, and we talked about what she did, and she works in the hospital system doing intake with adolescents and, psyche evals, basically. And I said, wow, what do you do with all that pain? How do you process that? And she said to me, it's okay. I'm really good at, how did she put it? I'm really good at compartmentalizing. And I said, well, what compartment does it go to?
Right.
And then we did a session, and she cried for the first time in 6 years.
Wow. Because as you're talking, all that is going through my head is compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
Secondary post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Like so many caregivers.
Yeah.
This is...
Yeah.
What do we do with this?
Yeah.
You're so right.
Yeah.
You're so right.
So she started feeling stuff first. She's like, I never cry about patients. Why am I crying about this patient? I'm like, because where do you think that's been living? And it was amazing because she had this pain in her arm that had been going on. And she's like, I just kept playing with it, like trying to hold my book on the other side or my computer. And within a 1-hour session, the pain in her arm was gone. And we really got, it was all of these clients stuck over there.
Yes, because it gets stored.
It's
in
stored.
our body.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you shove it down, it gets stored.
Right. And we're
somewhere.
literally saying it. It's in our language. A lot of times people say stuff like, oh, I just felt a knot in my stomach. Oh, I have a lump in my throat. It is physically in there. It's storing as energy. So, our job is to move it. And if we want to change the system, we change ourselves.
Right.
I know from this day forward, she's never going to see another client the same way again because she now gets this conversation with her body that she didn't have before. So that's our job, a little bit at a time. And with the mamas, right? to move it to the mamas so that they can give it to the babies. Because I don't think it's that it was bred out of us. I just think it was never instilled in us. It was never given to us as a gift. And this is the opportunity to give, and certainly there are things that have gotten in the way, but women have been overcomers. It's a tale as old as time.
Right. It gets taught out of us.
Yeah.
And not even intentionally.
Right.
It just with time,
Yeah.
we as children, well, why are you so upset?
Right.
You shouldn't be
Stop
upset.
crying.
Stop crying.
Yeah. Put your big girl pants on.
Right.
Let's go.
Right.
Yeah.
Or children are so intuitive. And you've been crying and you're upset and your little girl or little boy asks you, Mommy, what's wrong? Oh, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong.
It's one of my earliest memories with my mom.
Wow.
Her crying in the kitchen and me asking what was the matter. I think I was like 4 years old. I remember it so vividly. We were making tomato soup and it was just kind of boiling on the stove. It ended up turning into this like sticky red mess because it just kind of like disintegrated. I remember just saying, Mommy, why are you crying? And she said, it's okay, baby. All mommies cry. And I thought, even at that young age, I was 3 or 4, I don't even know. I remember thinking, this isn't normal. Like something's going on. There was a disconnect between what she was saying and what was happening, right?
Right. And you can feel it.
And you can feel it.
And I think over time when we feel it, then that's when we start to not listen. Or it's part of why. Oh, well, Mommy told me there's nothing wrong. And it just over and over and over
it's okay
again.
to feel this tension is really what I heard in that moment at 4 years old was it's okay to feel tension to this degree. That's a normal thing. Tension is normal. Right? That isn't what she said, but that was the message. Tension is normal. Upset is normal. So began this tolerance of upset.
Right.
And this activation, this switch. We've all got this parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system. We're either in fight or flight.
Right.
Or we're sometimes rest and relax, or sometimes we're completely checked out entirely. So went on the switch of fight or flight in my life. Of upset's normal. And upset is normal, by the way, but it's something to be honored, listened to, moved through, dealt with, not given up on or surrendered.
Or denied.
Or denied. Thank you, better language. Yeah, denied.
Denied. And that's part of what I like to do as I'm working with families and babies in the womb. Baby's aware, baby knows, baby's feeling. And if a mom or a dad is stressed, then stop. Just take a few moments and say, I love you, sweetheart. Mommy or daddy is just having a hard day. Sometimes it's a little stressful here on this planet, but I'm going to work through it. And it has nothing to do with you. Because as children, as babies, we tend to absorb what's going on with our parents. We can own it as our own, especially babies in the womb. And just to stop and say, I love you. I'm just having a bad day. And it's a good basis for parenting.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My girls know now, as they're older, if I've been at a really long birth and I haven't had any sleep, I can get short. And so I'll just, I love you. And what's going on right now, I'm going to lose my patience. I haven't had enough sleep.
Sure.
And I love you. And I don't want to lose my patience with you.
Yeah.
So what can we do different? It doesn't have anything necessarily to do with you.
Yeah.
I'm just very tired, and owning that.
Yeah.
So that maybe she does need to adjust her behavior because I'm trying to rest on the couch and she's jumping on me. I mean, a lot of times that didn't bother me, or something else is going on. Maybe there's a little adjustment, but intrinsically it doesn't have anything to do with her.
Yeah. And another powerful layer, like I hear when you're speaking, is I love the awareness, didn't have enough sleep, but I'm hearing like, oh, what would happen if you added and I need and enrolled people in what you need?
Oh, yeah. My 21-year-old is always good about, Mom, you need to just go lay down and go to sleep.
Yeah. And us answering
right.
for that, the self. We wake up. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a great example. I got up this morning. Our cat just passed 2 days ago, I guess it is now. And I just haven't been feeling like myself. Like I'm just feeling off. I'm in grief. Mm-hmm. And grief goes between sadness that she's not in the corner to just complete numbness. And in the numbness, I'm like disconnected, which makes it hard to do your job when your job's all about connection. So it's just been the last couple of days, like really getting like, what do I need right now? Mm-hmm. Gently like, okay, what do I need? I don't feel all myself. What do I need? Mm-hmm. Do I need nourishing food? Do I need to change my mindset and be more gentle about fixing it? One of the things I saw for myself just yesterday was like this, I got to get rid of this feeling. I have a client to deal with this nature. I have a client, I've got to get centered. This feeling of fixing. So it's just releasing that there was something to fix in the moment.
Yes, this last year as we've been walking through all this grief, I've tried to be aware. And on some days I would just tell my clients when I was ready to work. Some days I pushed myself too much and I learned. That was not good. I'm going to take time for myself, for my family, and I'm not going to serve my client well in this moment. But other days I was feeling better and ready to work. But then, grief comes in waves, and I would just be honest.
Yeah.
Hey, just please be patient with me. I just lost my mom, and we're working through this. And I want to be authentic. I'm ready to focus, and I want to focus on your pregnancy and your birth, but just to take that time to honor it instead of hide it.
Yeah, include it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is my first experience with Mino. There was a day that things were getting really bad. I mean, we've been dealing with this a few months, but I had an emergency client was like, I need to talk to you. Can we talk? And I was really up to my ears dealing with cat stuff. And I had this thought like, no, I can't talk to you right now. I'm dealing with all these things. And then I really noticed, I'm like, is it true? I actually can't talk while I'm dealing with these things. And I had this really profound breakthrough of including it, being present for myself and being present for them that I've never had before. Because the modes that I had before were either I've got to have it all together and I'm going to do a thing, or I'm completely shut down in grief.
Yes.
And it was this interesting experience of like, no, I can be really sad and hold that here. And I can be really loving and hold that here.
Yes.
And I can include them and hold it here.
Yes.
And it was beautiful. It was this beautiful dance. And we both got so much out of that call. And life went on. It was just really interesting.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. And it is so important. I wanted to swing back. You were talking about babies in the womb. I'm going to mess the research up without it in front of me, but I think it's like 7th or 8th month in utero. Actually, that's when the fight or flight system comes on board for babies. The amygdala is formed. It's like the earliest thing in a baby that's formed is actually the thing for stress. I think it's amygdala first and then the right brain. And it's not till later that the hippocampus comes online. That's like year 2, something like that. So the thing that regulates emotion doesn't come on till like later in life. But all of the trauma sensors are there even before you're born. So I loved what you said about including the baby, that it's okay. Your experience as a woman, it's directly being transmitted to your baby. And it's not a luxury to take care of yourself. It's a duty. You're passing it on. And the same goes once the baby's out into the world. We're passing on our experiences to them. There's even research about epigenetics, which I think you and I have talked about, but where they've done studies on war descendants and PTSD. And we're finding more and more we don't just inherit the genes for disease. We inherit trauma. They did a study, I don't remember if it was rats or mice, but where they're in the pen and they have a rat see a strawberry. And the rat goes to eat the strawberry, and then they start introducing a shock.
Yes, I heard this story.
Yeah, so we talked about that. And the rat goes to eat the strawberry. It gets shocked. Pretty soon the rat is obviously scared to death of the strawberry, not mind-breaking. But what's fascinating is when they take the shock away, it still does it. More fascinating still, the babies of the rat, when they see a strawberry with no shock, they're traumatized. Yes. And then the grandbabies of the rat, same reaction to strawberries. And we're getting this. So something happened to your great-great-grandmother. You're carrying that. It's going to our babies, our worldly experiences, as well as the ones we don't even begin to understand from our ancestry generations back. So we've got to start responding to the bodies as the intelligent mechanism that it really is, that carries all this wisdom and information forward because it's ready to speak.
I'm sitting with just the depth of our conversation because it's so important. And as you're talking as well, what's coming to me is the amount of shame that we carry about our bodies, especially as women. So much shame and how our bodies look, or when we're giving birth, oh my gosh, I might poop, or
yes, women have that, right? That's a thing, yeah.
Oh, I might poop while I'm pushing, and those of us in the birth realm, we're like, good, we know you're pushing right. That's how we know.
Isn't that amazing? What to you is a sign of activation, to them is a sign of something's wrong.
Yes, and there's so much shame about our bodily functions.
Yeah.
I mean, even in our interview as we were talking, he was saying, oh, I'm going to mention that.
Yeah, peeing is like a hard, like people can't be with peeing. I can talk about poop too, but yeah, it's like, and actually they talk about that. By the time you've disconnected from the body, it's what I say, disconnection from self is the danger of all that. Bodily functions are the thing that gets impacted. There are layers of disconnection, but one of the final layers before you leave is disconnection from bodily function. But yeah, women do have it, and that's ingrained, you know.
Yeah, there is so much shame.
Yeah.
Or I remember attending a birth once, and the mom was pushing, this was their first baby, and we were suggesting to get a mirror because sometimes getting a mirror can really help because you can see, because you're moving the baby. It takes a while sometimes to get the baby under the pubic bone, and you feel like, am I doing any work?
Yeah.
And then you start to see, oh, there's the baby's head.
Wow.
And it can help with that process.
Right.
And she said, no, I can't look at my vagina. I don't want to see it. And then I don't want to see it looking like this. And her husband, she told him, don't look at my vagina. And I had the type of relationship with them that I could look at her and say, be nice to your vagina.
Yeah.
It's getting ready, along with your uterus, to release your baby into the world.
Yeah.
Be kind to your body.
Yeah.
And the husband was so loving, and he looked at her in the eye and he said, you have never looked more beautiful to me than in this moment.
Oh, wow.
Every single part of you is so beautiful. And he reached over and he kissed her.
It's so beautiful.
And in that, she was able to relax and release her baby.
Yeah.
But there's just so much shame around our bodies, our functions, especially as women. I had this really powerful experience recently. A psychology student called me because she's doing research about pregnancy loss, perinatal loss. And we were having a conversation. And she said, why do you think that it's such a silent topic? And there's a multitude of reasons, some of which I don't think we grieve well culturally. That's my opinion.
Sure.
But in addition to, it used to be something, not so much in the Victorian era. They would honor their losses more. But in the early part, the 50s, 60s, like women would lose their babies and they wouldn't even get to see them. They were trying to protect them. And it's just this topic that isn't talked about, or it's very difficult to talk about baby loss. It's so painful and a lot of people are afraid of it. But as the psychology student and I were talking, what really occurred to me was part of the problem is we aren't even able to own our bodily functions as women.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, you didn't talk about tampons or menstrual cycles
sex or anything.
I mean,
no.
ITs when I gave birth, 34 years ago, I felt like we weren't even really supposed to know we had a uterus or a cervix.
Right.
It
Right.
was that whole mentality. And it just really washed over me how this inability to own the powerful cycles of our women's bodies and really the magnificence of it. It's covered with so much shame. It just makes sense to me that pregnancy loss, and especially because women tend to blame themselves in that loss, in that trauma of loss. It's just this silent thing that most of the time isn't talking about. It is starting to get a lot better with social media, and Instagram actually is really helpful to a lot of people that have incurred loss. But it hit me so profoundly that the shame is really permeating all of it.
And I really hear when you speak your commitment to bring to light what's not in the light. Like I really hear you have a commitment that the people get what they don't even know is at the core of what's eating them.
Yeah.
And whatever the thing is, right? I'm a little bit on a different side of the spectrum, but I love it because they play together well. But whatever it is, if you label it the shame or you label it disconnection, whatever you label the problem, right? The problem, I think we can agree the answer is in acceptance.
Yes. And earlier when we were talking about this incredible journey you've had, this concept of fixing versus allowing.
Fixing versus allowing.
And that is something huge that I've always worked with women in labor, that you have to surrender to the process.
Yeah.
That's how you're in control. You can't control it. It's a force of nature.
Yeah.
So we surrender to the process. And you need, I don't want to say you need to do anything, but there is power in relaxing and allowing.
There's power in surrender.
And I think part of what is askew in our obstetrical system and our medical system is we are trying to control and fix everything.
Right.
And some of it, you can't control or fix birth. Like I said, it's a force of nature.
And then one step back, you can't control or fix the system about the people who are controlling and fixing.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like for people who love to make change, which I am one, and I'm clear you're one for sure, right? How do I do that without being in the world of, because you always are the thing you're complaining about. Have you ever noticed that? You are always the thing you're complaining about. So if I'm railing because people are intolerant these days, I've got a lot of, people are intolerant. You got to get at some level. What I'm really saying is I'm intolerant of their intolerance at some level. So I can focus on the problem of it, or I can start to say, who am I committed to being?
Yes, who do I want to be?
Who do I want to be in this? What am I committed to bringing forward? And I'm committed to bringing forward a world where we don't focus on problems, where we focus on answers, we focus on solutions, we focus on what's naturally already there, which is, I believe, women, we are at a turning point in our history where women are ready to step in to own who they are and own their power. And I don't mean in a power way that we might have seen power demonstrated in the past. I think we've had some really beautiful, loud examples of power in the past. And I've been a loud, powerful person. I love that part of me. She gets stuff done. She's never ripped off at a car dealer. Everybody takes me car shopping because that girl can do things.
Right.
But there's a quieter power that's trying to emerge. And it's in the words, my favorite words. I'm trying to count how many letters. 5 words. I know what I know. I know what I know. And I know what I know not because you agree with me, or because I find evidence that it's right, or because I can explain it with fancy scientific terms, something I get caught up on sometimes. I know what I know because I know what I know. And if you're willing, you can step into you know what you know. Just try it on as an experience. You don't even have to understand what you're experiencing. But trying on you know what you know, that your body knows what it knows.
And again, it's that component of listening.
Yeah.
And trusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finding that balance. I love Wayne Dyer, and I love what you're saying too, because honestly, I feel like I'm more of a soother than I'm going to go be a birth warrior.
You're a little bit of a warrior, though.
Yeah,
you are a soother. You are a warrior soother.
And I'm starting to step into that, because if you had asked me a few years ago, I'd have been, no, that's not who I am. But I have always wanted to have this space, and I think that's what you're talking about, where I can be very kind and loving, but firm.
But firm.
I can be gentle,
Yes.
but I can be strong.
Yes.
And
all of it.
That's what I'm looking for. And I don't really want to go out and make war. That's not what I want. I want to find that place where we can honor what's going on and let's shine a light on these issues or concerns, because there is this element that we're not even aware that it's going on.
Right.
But I think it was Wayne Dyer. Wasn't it Wayne Dyer that said...
Everything brilliant?
Oh, yeah, he was brilliant. He is brilliant. But instead of being a part or making a stand for a war on cancer, why not make a stand for healing?
I love that.
And I think that's what you and I are talking about in this moment.
Yeah.
Of being in that space of possibility.
Yeah. And there's something to declaring no more war. No more war with myself.
Yes.
No more war with others, because this is where I'm so passionate about disconnection. So disconnection from self, on the most basic level, when we talk about self-care, we might say something like, well, a woman who doesn't take care of herself can't be good for everyone. And we know the analogy of the oxygen mask, put yours on. Right. So that's the most basic level of self-care and fundamentals. But go a step deeper. When you're disconnected from you, you're disconnected from others. The way you know you're disconnected is you start to view others as obstacles versus people.
You are so right.
So what this looks like is I'm in the grocery store at Sprouts, and I have to go home to get somewhere, and there's a lady in front of me talking, fumbling through her purse. And I'm disconnected from, I'm standing in the grocery store line at Sprouts, and I'm already I need to be home to do a thing. And now this lady's talking, and I'm tapping my foot, and she's talking, and my tapping's getting louder. And suddenly she's an obstacle. So I'm not with me, and now I'm not with her, and now I'm annoyed. And now she's a person that's in my way, and I'm impatient. And then I'm flustered and hurried, and I'm throwing her looks. And she's getting flustered and hurried and goes on her day. And then she gets into her car. And now she's a person who's disconnected, who's now in her car, who has road rage because someone's in her way. And then that turns to a fight with a husband, which turns to leadership, which on the biggest scale turns to war. So I really get my job to take care of myself isn't just about me. It's about taking care of the planet. Because if I can't be with being at peace wherever I am in any circumstance, there's no hope out there for anyone.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's really, as you're talking, what so much of what you're saying reminds me of what Wayne Dyer would talk about. He would talk about road rage and being present to the moment. What you're describing is really having compassion for yourself and having compassion for that person in front of you.
Compassion is something. You can't have it for someone in front of you if you don't have it for you.
Exactly. You can't give what you don't have.
It's physically not possible. You can't even see. It doesn't even occur like an option. It's not even on the menu. So to get aware and bring yourself loving kindness, it's your first duty to let it trickle out.
I agree. So if you've shared a lot of pearls of wisdom, but if you had one thing, what would you want to share with the listeners?
Show up for you. show up for yourself? That'd be my question. Are you showing up for you today? And how are you showing up for you? And how many ways can you expand that?
Or even what that looks like.
How many ways can you define that? How many ways can you embody that? How many ways? Like a game of, I'm taking improv classes right now. One of the games in improv is, making a new choice in a scene. So, in improv, you're given, you don't go up doing comedy. They give you something to work with. And you go, give me a scenario. And your job with improv is to say yes, no matter what they give you. Cancer. Oh, yes. A Sheltie dog. Yes. And it's to build on it. And so within that, you might have tools, right? So the tool might be, you're in the scene, you're using a hammer. Great, I'm using a hammer. And then they'll go, new tool. And now you have to choose a new tool. And they'll give you a new tool. Axe. Okay, new tool. And I think for us to be powerful in this world, we have to be adaptive. We have to be reaching for new tools, tools that serve us. And so instead of the challenge of figuring out getting it right, I would just want to expand it to how many ways can I be there for me? In all the ways I needed someone to be there for me that never were. How many ways can I be there for others in all the ways? Newly, differently, that I'm still there for me in all the ways no one ever was. That's what I want people to get.
Thank you. That's so... There's a better word than powerful, but I can't find it at the moment as I'm sitting just with the impact of what you're saying.
And it's already there, too. I think the reason I struggle with what would you want to give people, I'm like, I don't know, because it's already in them.
Yes, and it's just bringing it out.
Yeah.
Remembering.
Yeah.
Remembering who we really are.
Right. What makes you laugh? What brings you joy? Who do you love being around? What do you love about them? Because I promise you love it about you.
It's a really beautiful way to think about it.
Well, the husband with the wife thought it was so beautiful. Every part of you is beautiful. Yes. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if she said that to herself? Yes. Every part of me is beautiful. So a part of my being already knows exactly what it needs.
And again, it's that learning or remembering to tap back into that.
Yeah. Am I brave enough to listen?
And that's key too, isn't it? Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's great to be with you today.
It's been incredible. Just incredible. And so if someone wanted to reach out to you, how could they do that?
They can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/embrace your healing. I say that because Kathy Tagudin's way too confusing. Facebook.com/embrace your healing. You'll find me there.
Okay.
And
perfect.
I'd love to connect.
Perfect. So thank you so much. And thank you, families, for listening. And I suggest or invite you to take a moment to just breathe in the wisdom, the beauty, the compassion of this incredible woman sitting in front of me.
I was like, breathe in the wisdom, compassion of you. No, don't breathe it into me. Breathe it into you.
Or just this conversation. Invite it in.
Invite it in.
And allow it to begin to return you.
To you.
To you. To who you really are. Thank you again for listening. I know that there are so many shows out there and many ways that you could be learning and spending your time. So please know that my guests and I truly appreciate you listening. And if you're enjoying the show, please share it with a friend. And you can rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Because when you do, that helps get the show and the information out to more people. And if you have a question or a topic that you would like to have my guests or myself explore, please reach out to me at michelle@birtheaseservices.com. Thanks again.
For more great conversations like these, Or to find out more information and access Michelle's library of amazing guests, go to birtheasservices.com/podcast. For more information on the Birthease method, Michelle's classes, meditations, and other services, go to birtheasservices.com.